the topic was, is 1,000 cc's too much for the street, or is 1,000 cc's like really needed? Yep. 1,000 cc's is needed. Okay, topic done.
Agents of the Resistance.
We must rise. We must resist.
So I've been watching a lot of my friends doing their wheelie practices and kind of going a little bit more into the tutorial side, especially from Salt the Wound, and you get to see Yummy R6 and Chase on Two Wheels doing theirs on their supermotos, and then you have Motonosity who's doing his on his supermoto. But as many times as I've done a wheelie tutorial video, links in the description. As many times as I've done a wheelie tutorial, there's always something that I seem to leave out, and it's usually something that I learn a little bit later, or something that I didn't realize. Case in point, I'm going to kind of bring up questions that I get a lot, and then also bring up a couple things that I come to realize with, just traveling. So a lot of the questions I get is, will my bike wheelie? I have a blah 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 or whatever. Will my bike wheelie? Now, in most cases, your bike, if it has a clutch, and I don't want to say a decent amount, but some amount of power. If your bike has a clutch and at least some amount of power, your bike can wheelie. It might take a while to figure out the right harmonics between your clutch and your throttle side, but your bike will wheelie. And all it takes is practice for you to be able to figure it out. Some of the things that I've had people ask me is like, well, I feel more comfortable wheeling with two fingers, doing a two-finger pull on your clutch. And I mean, it's going to go back down to comfort regardless, but from what I've found is you have more throttle, or not throttle, but more handlebar control if you're only using one finger, because you have three other fingers that are on your handlebar, so it's not like you're halfway losing your fucking grip. Like if you're doing this, you're just down to fucking two fingers, and it's usually your two weakest fingers that are holding onto the bars if you're doing a two-finger pull to pop a clutch. So I'm still going to recommend doing a one-finger clutch. That's just more common sense to me. It's just like you have more handlebar control, especially with a strong middle finger, and not just these two little guys in your thumb holding on to your handlebars. Do you necessarily need to hold on to your handlebars? No. I could, as soon as I pop the wheelie, I could take my hand off. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's that. Let's not get a pussy wheelie. So high. But the initial, when you're learning this shit, you kind of want to have control over your handlebars. So the more fingers you have on it, the better. So yes, one finger. I get the question a lot. Well, first gear comes up too quick for me, so it scares me. Yes, yeah, it's supposed to. It's fucking first gear, but there's techniques that you learn popping up a first gear wheelie that second gear doesn't teach you. Let's put first gear into perspective. First gear is gonna pop like depending on how much throttle you give it and how much acceleration you're going. First gear is going to pop up very quickly. But what you learn with first gear is solid throttle control. It teaches you how to manage your throttle and modulate the power. A good point of view to that would be Cutthroats. You see him modulating the power a lot. I'm not saying his wheelie technique is solid, because I mean if you're getting it, you just need to make minor adjustments. But making those, I'm only saying Cutthroat because you can actually see the changes that need to be made for the bike to stay up. You can actually see him giving input to put the throttle power down. The thing about that is you're giving a little bit too much input and then releasing off too much. So that's why you have to modulate back and forth. And that teaches you throttle control in first gear. So if you're modulating back and forth, then you just have to like wean your way into less pullback when you're modulating back, and that'll give you less push forward to modulate. If you're at that point, that's going to make sense to you. If you're not there yet, then you'll understand it when you get to that point. Something that I found doing a couple mountain runs in Seattle, and definitely when I visited Albuquerque on my trip through out to Florida, is anything pretty much above 1,000 feet sea level, you're going to have significant problems wheeling. Absolutely significant problems wheeling. And I wish I had touched on this a lot sooner. Like a long time ago, I wish I had touched on this. And it's basically because your bike is starving for air. It has no air. You're at fucking like 1,000 feet of elevation, and it's starving. So I mean, if it's starving at 1,000 feet, imagine what it's doing at like 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever the fucking elevation is for, let's say, Colorado. You see what I'm saying? So like the higher up in elevation, the more starved your bike is. So you have to lower your gear or change your gear ratio. I mean, it's not, you don't have to, but I mean that's something that you can mechanically do to compensate for like the lower air pressure. Yeah, like I said, I really wish I had touched on that a lot long ago. A lot long ago. I don't know. Fuck it. Go fuck yourself. But I'm out here just to do some wheelie practice and try and give you guys a little bit more tips on what I see, especially when I'm like teaching friends how to wheelie locally, that they don't understand what I mean by you need to accelerate harder. Let me see if I can put it into perspective. If you're going at 20 miles an hour, this is for any bike. I don't like using RPMs anymore because it just doesn't make sense, and it changes for every bike depending on the gear and the motor and whatever. So let's say 20 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour is solid enough to where your gear indicator isn't going to fucking change the exact speed. So roughly 20, you're going to be okay. So at 20 miles an hour is usually right where I have my friends starting off on trying to wheelie. And I tell them to accelerate through into your power band and pop the clutch. It's the same concept that I've been teaching since wheelie tip 1. But here's the thing that I see is they don't accelerate hard enough. Let's accelerate slowly from 20, and it's not going to be hard enough. So here I'm at 19, roughly 20. I'm going to accelerate and pop. Fuck. I mean, I'm doing it. I'm doing it the right way because the front end's coming up. But they'll not accelerate hard enough, which is what's going to be where just the bike lurches forward when they pop the clutch and they disengage the driveline and basically scare the bike to popping a wheelie. That's all a wheelie is you're shocking your bike into doing a wheelie. You're taking the power away from it, increasing the power, and giving the power back to it in all realistic. It's like I made no sense to myself, but yet again still made somewhat sense. I hope that makes sense. So if you're accelerating and you continue to accelerate and you take the power away and give the acceleration back, your bike is just going to lurch forward. So if it's just lurching forward, you need to accelerate harder. So let's say if it's just lurching and you're accelerating like this, then you need to accelerate like this. You need to accelerate harder. That by harder I mean give it more throttle input. So it's not just like I'm accelerating, it's I'm accelerating. And then you still have to wait for your power band before you can pop the clutch. Do you have to? No. I mean, if you know what you're doing and you can, I mean, I could pop it right now at 20 and just be like, whoop, front end up. So you don't have to wait for your power band, but if you're learning, it helps if you actually rev out your power band. You know what I mean? So you leave your throttle in the same position while you're accelerating hard and just slip the clutch just slightly. So accelerate, slip. I hope that makes sense. I really do. I really hope that makes sense. I want you guys to get wheelies. I mean, it's one of the coolest feelings in the world to be able to fucking do it whenever you want.